Lightroom stores information about the images it is managing for you in a catalog. Using the right catalog settings can be very important, and in this video we'll explore the best settings to use for your catalogs. You can get to the catalog settings either by selecting Lightroom, or if you're on a PC, Edit Catalog Settings, or if you select Preferences at the bottom of the General tab, you can go straight to the catalog settings from here. So you see now under Catalog Settings we have three tabs: General, File Handling, and Metadata. Let's start with the General tab. So the first area here is just information about the catalog itself: where it's located, what the name of the catalog is, when it was created, when it was last backed up, last optimized, and the total size of the catalog. If you want to find where the catalog is located directly, just select Show, and you'll be taken to that location on your hard drive. Now, as far as backup goes, you can choose how often Lightroom prompts you to back up your catalog. I would suggest never select never, because you do want to back up your Lightroom catalog, and you want to do it fairly often. Now, how often you do it really depends on how many pictures you're importing into Lightroom, how often you're working with Lightroom. I generally select every time Lightroom exits, so when I quit Lightroom, I'm prompted to back up my catalog and optimize it. I don't have to, but I'm prompted and reminded that it's important to back up your catalog. So under File Handling, under Preview Cache, this is where we can set the size of the standard preview size. Now, this is the size that you can set on import to have Lightroom automatically generate a standard preview size. However, you can have Lightroom make a larger standard preview size or a smaller one. Really, it's your preference. Just remember that the larger the standard preview size, the longer it will take to import and also to reveal that picture when you go to edit it in Lightroom itself. So I suggest probably just going with the default here is fine. And as far as the preview quality, again, go with the default, the medium, but you can also go to a higher preview quality or a lower. And maybe this will depend a lot upon the monitor that you're using as well. If you have a very high resolution monitor, you might want to have the larger preview size and higher quality. Now, automatically discard one-to-one previews. You can choose how often the one-to-one previews are discarded. And remember that if you never discard a preview, this total preview cache size is going to get huge, or the total size of your catalog is going to get huge. So you do want to discard one-to-one previews periodically. Now, whether you want to do it after 1 day, 1 week, or after 30 days, that's your choice. You can also do this in the library module under library, and then you can select discard one-to-one previews at any time. You don't have to have Lightroom doing it automatically for you. Okay, as far as smart previews go, this is telling me that I don't have any smart previews, 0 bytes, which is correct. I haven't generated any of the new smart previews that are now available in Lightroom 5. Import sequence numbers, the import number, this is when you're bringing images into Lightroom using the import dialog window. You can set an import number. You can also do that within the import dialog window itself. So under Metadata Editing, the first option you have is to offer suggestions from recently entered values. Now, this is relevant when you're over here in the Metadata panel and you're typing in various bits of information that you want to add to the metadata. If you've used the information before, it will automatically suggest you use that again. If you don't want that, you deselect it here, and if you want to get rid of all previous suggestions, you just select Clear All Suggestion List. The next option, Include Developed Settings in the Metadata inside JPEG, TIFF, PNG, and PSD files. This actually is selected on now. I would probably, it really depends on what you're trying to do with your files that you export. And this is really only relevant to those files that are being exported out of Lightroom. If you are sending a file someplace and you know you want people to have all those developed settings, they're going to use it in Camera Raw or another Adobe product, you might want to keep that selected. If you're just sharing your files with, let's say, clients or people who don't plan to do anything with it and you don't want them to do anything with it later, you might want to deselect that. Now this next option, automatically write changes into XMP, this I think is pretty important. If this is selected, what this means is that Lightroom, as you work on an image in Lightroom, let's say in either the library or the develop module, if you make any changes to that image, so that you increase the exposure, decrease the exposure, those changes are being stored in the Lightroom database. If they're not associated with the actual file outside of Lightroom, and they just don't exist outside of Lightroom. If you select automatically write changes into XMP, Lightroom will automatically update a sidecar, a separate file. If you're working with a raw file, if you're working with a DNG file, it'll build it right into the DNG file itself and put all those changes right into the file. Now the problem with that, the good thing is that you'll have those changes automatically done and you don't have to think about it. The bad thing is it takes up some of your processing power, can slow you down, and there can be glitches. If you're doing 100 images and you're changing the white balance on 100 of them, it's going to go in the background and go and write all those changes into the XMP. So I would suggest here you don't select that. Deselect that or keep it deselected. However, you may want to, what we call, push that information into the files in Lightroom on a selective basis. That's very simple to do, just using the Command or Control S keyboard command while you're working on the image or when you have a selection. So I suggest that you keep that deselected and push the information when you want to have it with the file outside of Lightroom. Just do it within Lightroom itself. So here, under reverse geocoding, you have an option to enable reverse geocoding of GPS coordinates to provide address suggestions. So if you dropped an image into the map module and you have the coordinates that come up, Google Maps or Lightroom through Google Maps will provide actually an address as well, if it has one. Now, if you don't want it doing that, you just deselect this. Now the same holds true on the next option, export reverse geocoding suggestions whenever the address fields are empty. This is going to give you suggestions when you go to export the image. This is in conjunction with the export options that you have. So this is all about the way that the map module works with Lightroom. I would just suggest keeping both those options on unless you have specific reasons not to select those. And then the last option here is to write date or time changes into proprietary raw files. Well, raw files themselves generally can't be written into. However, there is an exception when you want to change the date or time. Now you can make a change in a raw file only if you've selected this, and that change is only limited to date or time changes. But that'll only happen if you select that option there. So those are some important catalog settings to keep in mind when you're working with Lightroom.